Hello, this is Tranna Wintour welcoming you to another episode of my vlog for Queer Comics. Hope you're doing well. Today we are tackling a very complicated issue. This is actually like the fourth time that I've restarted recording this video, which I normally never do. The whole premise of my vlog is for this to be a one-take, tell it like it is experience, but this topic is so complicated and it's just one big giant gray zone, and we're talking about censorship and political correctness, a topic that I feel very strongly about and I do have a lot of opinions about. But even as I start to express opinions, I sort of stop myself because even in my own personal views, nothing is black and white. I don't feel necessarily 100% about anything that I'm about to say because it's such a nuanced topic and my feelings about it are so nuanced and tend to go really back and forth. So, this is something that a lot of people are talking about lately, especially in the comedy world, and I'm going to try to focus this piece on the comedy world, speak from experience. Recently Jerry Seinfeld and Chris Rock spoke about how they will no longer perform in colleges because audiences have just become too overtly sensitive and easily offended, and these audiences are demanding trigger warnings and all of that. And, this is where things become complicated for me because I, respect people's feelings and sensitivity to certain topics, and, in a perfect world, it would be great for all of us to respect each other's feelings and not hurt each other, but I mean, that's just not the reality of the world. And I feel like, trigger warnings, oh God, I mean, I understand why they're in place and I can see their importance in protecting people's feelings, but at the same time, we all have wounds, we all have scars, and that is life, and existing and experiencing things and going to performances and seeing art and seeing plays and seeing concerts and going to comedy shows. These are just experiences, and of course you're going to be confronted with things that might be difficult for you, and of course you have the choice to not stick around if something is particularly traumatic. But I feel like trigger warnings is kind of like the equivalent of walking the streets with a helmet on. At any given moment, yeah, something out of the sky can fall and land on your head, but are you really going to walk around with a helmet on every day? I don't think so. And, I've definitely, in my own experiences, have gone to see different works that have reminded me of very painful moments in my own life. And yeah, it's difficult, but at the same time, art and creative pieces of work are meant to be challenging and are meant to confront you with things that you might not have fully dealt with. And that's the great thing about any kind of art and performance art, is that it can not force, but it can shed a different light on things. And so I feel like, and also the other thing too in regards to trigger warnings and policing language and censorship is that, especially as it relates to comedy and the performing arts, is that when you get down to it, any good performer is not motivated by an intent to hurt their audience and wound them. Especially in comedy, the intent is just to make people laugh and to entertain and to lighten the mood because, God, the world is a fucking dark place. And, I mean, if we lose our sense of humor about things and our ability to talk about things openly, what the fuck are we left with? And that's what I think is the danger of trigger warnings and censorship and language policing, is that at the end of the day, what's happening is that it's not even the real heart of the matter that's being tackled. I mean, if you manage to convince someone to no longer use the word tranny, what are you really changing? What are you really accomplishing? Do you think that a hateful, transphobic, homophobic person who, agrees to no longer use that word out loud is actually undergoing any real change in their heart. Is that hatred going away? Absolutely not. Um, and I think that the biggest problem that I see as well is that in regards, again, to trigger warnings and censorship and language policing is that there is no longer a regard for context whatsoever, and that horrifies me. Um, because no word is inherently meaningful or hurtful in any way. No word is inherently good or bad. It is the context that decides if a word is good or bad or hurtful or funny or whatever. And, this sort of blatant disregard for context in this supposedly noble pursuit of language policing is just absolutely ridiculous and horrific to me. Because communication is context. Context is the most important ingredient in communication and open and honest communication. And, the example that I always go to when talking about this is the way that the trans community sort of attacked RuPaul for using the word tranny and the word she-male, which I just think is so unbelievably ridiculous. And what happens when you disregard context and solely focus on a word, and really at the end of the day, the meaning and the connotation that you are personally bringing to that word. I'm sorry, I just totally got lost in my thoughts. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that people who are sort of on this crusade to police language, and to censor certain words from being used are coming from a personal place, whether they want to admit that or not. Because again, no word is inherently positive or negative. People that are policing language and attacking people like RuPaul for using the word tranny are coming from a personal place, and again, that's the danger of no longer having any disregard for context, because you start attacking your own allies. I mean, again, really, you're going to make the claim that the way that RuPaul is using the word tranny and she-male is hateful? Give me a fucking break. I don't think there's a hateful bone in RuPaul's body. It is just entertainment. It is just laughing at different situations and laughing at ourselves and poking fun at ourselves, which is so essential. I remember when I was a kid and a teenager, I was never able to laugh at myself. I always took myself so seriously because I was such a wounded, insecure person at that time in my life, and so, of course, I was so easily devastated by words, and I felt that everything was hurtful, and I was so sensitive, and I was living so close to that emotional edge all the time. But then when, I was able to reach a point in my life where I could just fully embrace myself and make peace with the traumatic and the hurtful things that I had gone through in my life, those words were genuinely no longer hurtful whatsoever. I mean, you can call me a fucking, faggot, skank, tranny bitch. I wouldn't give a two fucks about what you have to say, or what anyone has to say in a negative way to me. And that's where real power is, and I feel like that's where we need to be focusing our energy and helping other people get to these places too, where they're no longer so easily wounded by words, because I think it's just coming from a place of victimization. I mean, I'm just going to speak for myself. I would never pretend to speak for anyone else, but that's where it was coming from for me, and when I would be hurt by words and trying to get people to not use these words, it was just coming from a place of victimization and a place of wanting to have more control. But the only thing you ever have control over is yourself and the way that you react in certain situations and the power that you choose to give yourself or not give yourself. And maybe I'm oversimplifying things on some level, but I really don't see any other way. So I hope that there is a return to context and a return to sense of humor and being able to laugh at ourselves in positive environments, because when you walk into a comedy club, I can guarantee you any good comedian is just coming from a place of wanting to talk about things in a real and honest and funny way and entertain you and challenge you. And, you know, any comedian that you might see in the future that is just a bigoted, homophobic, misogynistic, racist motherfucker is not a good comedian, and you shouldn't be paying these kinds of people any regard in the first place. So I know that this video was sort of all over the place, and I don't know if I've really said anything that is coherent, but I just am a firm believer in real, honest communication and dealing with the real issues and not focusing on surface things like language and word choice, which at the end of the day don't count for shit, because it's all about action anyway. It's all about who you are and what you do in your day-to-day life and not the words that you use. So that's where I stand on that, and I am off to go host an amazing fundraising event for a really wonderful Quebec trans rights organization. I will not be doing a video next week because I will be performing in Ottawa at Yuck Yucks, so if you're in Ottawa, come see me at Yuck Yucks. It's going to be a blast, and I hope you're all doing well, and I'll catch up with you very soon. Bye.